Hi guys, Victoria here, welcome to my channel. In today's video I would like to show you where I have been in the past month. Well, I am bringing you a series of videos from the places I have visited during the 4 weeks of my travels. I was first in the Northern Mariana Islands for 2.5 weeks for work, but I was lucky enough to also explore Saipan, Grotto and Tinian, 3 out of the 14 islands of the Marianas. In today's video, I'm going to give you a little introduction of Saipan. Saipan is the largest island of the Northern Mariana Islands with a population of almost 50,000 inhabitants. The Northern Mariana Islands is a commonwealth of the United States in the western Pacific Ocean. The native population of the island is called the Chamorro. The island was first occupied by the Spanish during the age of the great discoveries in the 1600s. After the Spanish-American War in 1898, Saipan was occupied by the US. However, it was then sold by Spain to the German Empire in 1899. The island was administered by Germany as part of German New Guinea, but during the German period there was actually no attempt to develop or settle the island, which remained under the control of the Spanish. Let me just quickly mention the flame trees before continuing with the history. The flame tree is actually a native to Madagascar, but has since spread to other countries, including nations in the Pacific and Asia. It is resilient to heat as it craves for tropical climate and can survive salty conditions. According to the Marianas Resource Conservation and Development Council, the first flame trees were brought to Saipan in the 1960s, and at that time around 800 to 900 trees were planted. In 1914, during the First World War, the island was captured by the Japanese. Japan was awarded formal control of the island in 1919 by the League of Nations as part of its mandated territory of the South Seas Mandate. Saipan was one of the most important islands at that time and became the center of subsequent Japanese settlement. The Japanese developed large-scale sugar plantations, built sugar refineries, and extensive infrastructure developed. By October 1943, Saipan had a civilian population of almost 30,000 Japanese settlers and around 4,000 Chamorro and Carolinian islanders. During the Second World War, Japan considered Saipan to be part of the last line of defense for the Japanese homeland and thus had strongly committed to defending it. In mid-1944, nearly 30,000 troops were based on this island. The Battle of Saipan from 15th of June to 9th July 1944 was one of the major campaigns of the Second World War. Before continuing with the history of the island, let me just quickly mention this island here, the Bird Island, which is located on the Pacific Ocean side of Saipan. This island is a small stone islet standing on coral reef. It is one of the most famous scenic spots in Saipan, and it is definitely a must-see. So this side, as I mentioned, is the Pacific Ocean side, where the ocean is way deeper than the other side, and the ocean itself is not easily accessible as the shore is very high up on the cliffs, while the other side, the Filipino seaside, is definitely much shallower, and you have direct access to sandy beaches, and the coral reef allows you to safely bathe in shallow waters. The grotto that you just briefly saw is a hidden gem of a snorkel spot in Saipan. It is a famous underwater limestone cavern that reaches some 21 meters below the sea at its deepest point. Considered as one of the best cavern dive spots in the world, its wealth of underwater life, including turtles, parrotfish, and many hard and soft corals, make it hugely popular with snorkelers and swimmers too. And now the remains of this Japanese command center from the Second World War brings us back to the history of the Battle of Saipan, where the United States Army and Marine Corps have battled against the Japanese for 3 weeks and captured the island at the end with some 20,000 Japanese civilians perishing during the battle, including over 1,000 who jumped from the Suicide Cliff and the Banzai Cliff to their deaths rather than being taken as prisoner. The island is filled with memorials of this battle, and for example, the recordings that you are just looking at are from the Banzai Cliff, which was one of the cliffs from which the Japanese committed suicide rather than being captured. Basically, the reason for this was that the Japanese propaganda emphasized brutal American treatment of the Japanese and claimed that US soldiers were bloodthirsty and without morals. Many Japanese feared the Americans raping and devouring Japanese women and children, so they decided to rather die than being captured. The precise number of suicides here on the Banzai Cliff as well as the Suicide Cliff is still unknown. Let's talk about something more pleasant now. I would like to mention the weather conditions in Saipan and in the Northern Mariana Islands in general. There is very little seasonal temperature variation, and for this reason Saipan has been cited by the Guinness Book of World Records as having the least fluctuating temperatures in the whole world. The drier season runs from December to June and the rainier season from July to November. During our stay, we were facing between 27 to 31 degrees constant every day, with almost every day having a shower or short period of rain, as we were actually almost entering into the rainy season. Typhoon season runs from July to December, and Saipan, along with the rest of the Mariana Islands, is subject to at least one typhoon each year. Actually, one of the typhoons from a couple of months before my travels stopped us from reaching a few of the sites in Saipan because we were told that it is not possible to access them as the way there was not cleared after the typhoon. One morning, as we were going to the airport to fly to Grotto, we saw a few of these sailing canoes on the ocean, and from that moment on, we were wondering, okay, how can we do this? We want to try this, and we were trying to find information. And it took us a few days to find one person who was able to tell us exactly when and where to go to be able to try it for free. And basically on our second to last day, we managed to go on a ride, and these are actually called the Proas. And these Proas are traditional sailing outrigger boats of the Chamorro people of the Northern Marianas, and they are characterized by a single outrigger and a crab close sail. And so for me, it was a little bit of a stressful experience because my colleague Sylvie actually had a fall into the water with their proa while I was already out on the water. And so from that moment on, I was a little bit stressed. Luckily, I didn't have this accident, but Sylvie got the full experience. And those boats that you could see in the background are actually US Navy boats. There were 4 of them stationed there next to the island of Saipan, and they were there the whole time we were in Saipan for 2.5 weeks. And in Guam, there was actually an army exercise while we were there. So there were a lot of army people, Navy people all over the place. So Sylvie, can you tell us what happened?
I got the full experience, the boat, so.
And in case you were wondering why I was at the Northern Mariana Islands, I was working at the Pacific Mini Games, and this games is called the Mini Games because it is a scaled down version of the main Pacific Games, and it is rotated on a 4-year basis in the intervening years between the main games. At this event, 21 islands of the Pacific competed in athletics, badminton, baseball, beach volleyball, golf, tennis, triathlon, va'a, and weightlifting. Here I inserted a few shots from the opening ceremony so that you can get the feeling of the size of the event and the atmosphere. On Saturday mornings, there is a weekly market where you can buy all kinds of things, like mostly food items, fruits, vegetables, live animals. So naturally we visited it one Saturday, but for us it was interesting, but we didn't really do much shopping because we didn't really have any place to prepare meals. We always ate ready meals, but it was interesting to see what kind of fruits and vegetables and other things they are trying to sell. It was kind of also flea market as well at the same time. We really like the beaches on the Philippine seaside, the sandy beaches. There were really not so many people around. The tourists still didn't start to come back to this island. It is actually quite difficult to fly in. There are flights only from Guam and South Korea directly to Saipan. And so there are a few Korean tourists, but mostly a lot of the hotels are actually shut down. Even the restaurants and, for example, the beach bars, some of them are not functioning, unfortunately. Which I kind of liked the fact that there were no people around, but of course there is unfortunately a lot of missed potential, and unfortunately, of course, it is not very good for the local economy there to not have tourists for over 2 years now, since they rely a lot on the income from the tourism. Well, guys, this is it for today, the travel vlog from Saipan. I am going to come out with a few more videos from Rota and Tinian from the Northern Marianas, as well as Guam, and finally the Philippines. Thank you for watching this video. Hit the like button if you liked it, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see the upcoming videos. Until then, goodbye.